like get a progressive on this is like it's like the standard question of like how many unarmed black people do you think are killed every year by the cops? Do you have any idea what the answer to that question
All
is?
of them.
Take a guess. Do you know?
All of them.
Take a guess.
I don't know.
Okay.
What's the answer?
It's like 17.
Okay.
But people think the answer's in like the hundreds or 1000s.
Mm-hmm.
But it's because of like the media reporting on things that it like blows a lot of issues out of control. So even if there is a problem, people have a bad grasp of how bad the problem is, which leads them to have a bad understanding of like how to solve the problem, right? That's where all the cringe like defund the police came and went in like a year because every police department that tried it was like a fucking disaster. I was like, this is retarded, and then yeah. You okay with 17? Pisco, honestly, I prefer under 14, but you know how it goes. All right, hold on.
People, I think it's sick. And so I hate that this is happening, and I hate that I've come to this realization, and it's based on actual evidence and in-depth reporting on it, because I don't know what to believe because I don't trust the media. You get what I'm saying?
I do, but again, both things can be true at the same time. Let me give you an example of what I mentioned on Karen Hunter's show. She's on SiriusXM Urban View. Rashad Richard, one of our hosts, is also on it. And Karen, I think, would admit that she's more of a establishment or mainstream Democrat. Like, she's one of the people, when I say Nina Turner, she is repelled by it. Okay, and so
you know who Nina Turner is? She's a lady that tried to run for Congress in California. She outraced her opponent 2-1, lost, and then blamed the Jews on it. Very good progressive candidate. Yeah, very good progressive candidate there. I might be hyperbolizing slightly, but not much. I encourage everybody to go look into the details of that. If you think I'm lying, okay? I would show you on stream right now if I was on my home computer, but I don't have it all right now. But like, yikes! Whoa, Lake Toya VA, thank you for subbing, bro.
We don't have to hate each other, etc. And Karen's, of course, an African-American woman. And so we got, okay, difference of opinion, but she, of course, she's deeply concerned about racism. I'm deeply concerned about racism. And in the midst of that conversation that we were having,
well, I said, would be honored to train you.
You can't attribute the whole MAGA thing to racism because, and this is true, you could look it up. Obama, after he won his first election, his poll
Canal, thanks for gifting 5 memberships.
Numbers, which it feels impossible to believe at this point, was at a stunning 83% approval. 83%.
That's like 5 minutes.
So,
or less.
Obviously, a giant chunk of Republicans and independents who had got past the racism enough to say,
She ran in Ohio? Wait, am I mixing her up with somebody else? Oh, she might have ran in Ohio. I'm sorry. Oh no, she did run in Ohio. I'm sorry, not California. My bad. I feel like every bad thing about progressives comes from California. That's not true. my mistake.
Really like Barack Obama. Okay, so now, but is that the whole story? No, of course not. I mean, look at the example that I gave there. Did Trump say we should stop all Muslims from coming into the country? He did. Did the Republican voters love it? They did. So both of those things are true, and that's why it's complicated. So, and now you go to the next layer of it. And by the way, as we see, and did they march in Charlottesville saying the Jews will not replace us? They did. Was that the majority of Republicans? No, right? But was there enough of them to cause a lot of trouble throughout the country? Yes. You see, all of these things are true at the same time, right? So,
does anyone else find it really interesting that the Young Turks is even having this kind
of
discourse being
the
broadcasted? Why do you think Cenk plays
you have cleansed the 1,000 needles of a horror.
I don't think Cenk is playing along.
Is your lesson this day. Adventurer, it is now time for you to travel to far-off lands. You are ready. You now hunt Frostmaw, a yeti in the Alterac Mountains. He is elusive, his white coat blending into the snows of his mountain home. He rarely shows himself, but I will show you how to entice a creature such as he. Here, take this scroll. On it I have written how Frostmaw may be lured. Now go, adventurer. Your journey is long, and many challenges lay waiting. When you return with Frostmaw's mane, only then is your task complete. Remember, all things are connected. If the beasts were gone from the land, our kind would die from a great loneliness of spirit. For whatever happens to the beasts also happens to the Tauren. Whatever befalls Azeroth befalls all those that inhabit it.
I feel like the Young Turks do try to get it right. Cenk literally said he did this in your convo with him. Sometimes I ham it up for the broadcast. Yeah, that was dumb. But yeah, no, I think Cenk legitimately tries to get it right. He might ham it up a little bit, but I think he wants to be. Yeah, I think he wants to be. Like, I think he made a good argument that when that one trans broadcaster left their org a while ago because they think Anna is fucking transphobic or some shit now. I mean, he said they have people on their network that they disagree with. I think he tries to get it right. I give him the benefit of the doubt for now, although it does seem to be the case that every single person in my life I've given the benefit of the doubt to ends up being a snake or a backstabber or worse. So, but well, hopefully, well, hey, listen, that's life sometimes, okay? Jake just playing good cop to Anna's bad cop to hold on to what little remaining socialist viewers they have left. Cringe. I don't think that's true. So, you know, you choose what you like. I saw this Trump. Is it actually a felony for Trump to hold a gun if he's charged or indicted with a felony? Can he not do that?
He can't have a gun.
Just for being indicted with a felony?
He cannot have a gun. Stands the law. Yes.
Jeez.
Convicted of a felony, then you can't have a gun.
Well, wait, he's not convicted, is he? But that's what I'm saying. He's like, if he's indicted with a felony. Oh, he's a condition of bail. Gotcha. Oh. Damn. My assistant. Why do people say this? I don't want to argue about this. I'm done arguing about this. I like when people give their takes on fitted clothes as if they've worn them before. There's a difference between deadlifting in joggers and deadlifting in leggings. No, there's not. You can find guys that like are pulling like 5, 6, 7 plate that sometimes they're wearing either just normal shorts or sometimes sweatpants. Like, you don't have to be in leggings. I don't want where. Why do? And no, I'm not trying to be mean or whatever, but like these
When
women aren't
mounted
even
on the back
pulling
of a
one
window.
plate most of the time. Like, why do you think you need like optimally fitted fucking skin tight Catwoman tier clothing to pull 115? And when I say pull, I really mean do hip thrusts, because I'm just kidding. I'm sorry. I'm being misogynistic. We can't talk about the gym stuff because that's my misogyny will come out, and I don't want to be misogynistic. I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. Like, these leggings literally have like imprints of like the booty cheeks. Yeah. Is that necessary? Does that improve like performance? The booty cheek outlines on the clothes?
I don't think there's a problem with it as long as you're not complaining about it.
True, I agree. Trump's spokesperson said he purchased it. That would be a big yikes if that's true. Wouldn't be the first time somebody close to Trump has fucked him over, though, and he has to ditch that person. Remember Giuliani? Remember Cohen? Remember his entire fucking Manafort and Flynn and all the people coming in and his election bullshit and... Oh, God, he's such an actual unbelievable joke. Donald Trump gun thing. I saw that. It's just unbelievably stupid to me. I don't know. Have you followed any of the Donald Trump gun stuff?
Vaguely, just the fact that like his representation like announced that he had bought a gun and then he was like, never mind.
No. It wasn't just that. This retard is like getting a gun given to him on like TV on camera, and he's got a fucking picture of it. Like it's Hunter Biden tier. Like, here I am measuring out how much crack I've got on my crack scale.
He's smiling so sweet. It looks like those pictures of like men with fish on their Tinders. Like he's just holding it up so proud.
Really? It looks like a grandpa who's like kind of has a little bit of dementia, and he's smiling next to his granddaughter who just told him that she has like a girlfriend and she's a lesbian.
Like right
yeah,
now.
but he doesn't actually comprehend what's going on, and he's just like smiling because he doesn't know what's happening. Like, holy shit. What are your thoughts on... Oh, no, it says he didn't buy it. It was at a gun store.
Oh.
I don't know if he's even allowed to hold a gun, though. Like, I think if you're a convicted felon... I know he's not a convicted felon, but I don't know what the conditions of his bail are.
I think it is, like, hold, possess, or use.
Yeah, I don't think you're allowed to even touch a gun.
I don't
Like,
think anyone would go after you, really.
What if you, like,
for it?
threw a gun at somebody
You're fine.
that had a felony?
You're
They
fine.
touch it. It's like tag. It's like baseball. They touch it,
They didn't
the gun.
consent to that. There was no mens rea.
What if you asked somebody to go play paintball with you, and then you gave them a paintball gun, but it was a real gun?
And that would be so fucked up.
But then they'd have to go to jail.
No, I don't think so.
Nah, Destiny, nah. They said he bought it and then went back and said he
you need to
didn't.
get the surgery.
Shut up. Don't stop.
See?
Oh, that's fine. I'll just never see you again. Okay?
Okay.
Listen, live your life. Okay, be happy. No, Donald Trump did not buy a gun during a trip to South Carolina Monday. He only said he wanted to. Social media lived up the Trump campaign posted a video admiring a gun with a likeness of him branded on it. A now deleted post said the former president purchased a Glock, which was dubbed Trump 45.
My Wind Riders are trained to
I'm gonna
fly.
buy one, Trump said at one point. Isn't a Glock a great gun? Trump posed for pictures with a gun. His entourage included Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, but he didn't actually buy
Many
it.
travelers
Illegal
who've come
construction
through
under
the
Diamond Fork
crossroads
cases.
helped me gather eggs from the field of giants, and many of them have tales of how deadly the creatures are. I've heard enough to consider them insects a much larger threat than my master's first thought. I need a courier to travel to Orgrimmar to meet Belgrim Rockmole. It'd be no simple matter, and someone who would take the task seriously should go. Belgrim usually be found outside the Warriors Guild house.
Campaign letter issued a statement. President Trump did not purchase or take possession of the firearm. He simply indicated that he wanted one. Wow, that's what USA Today says. The law specifies receiving a gun that has crossed interstate boundaries. Wow. Are you a loyal Democrat?
I'm not loyal to anything.
God, you're so edgy.
Yeah.
Who do you think's gonna play Donald Trump in like the future biopics of him?
That's a good question. You could do it.
Yeah. Are they actually finishing that one movie that the one guy shot somebody on? Fuck. Not Alex. Oh God, what's his name?
That's Murdoch?
No. God, what's the actor's name? I don't want to look.
Alec Baldwin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fuck, you ruined it. I was trying to remember it.
Sorry.
Alec Baldwin. Are you loyal to the game?
I'll speak less. To the game?
To the game.
To the game? Which
Yeah.
game? Only Factoria.
Oh, okay. Alec Baldwin. I think they're finishing that movie, aren't they? How dark. Did you see the Meta stock news today?
Of Ray-Ban Meta smart.
Wait, I actually have not, I still hold a ton of that stock. How are they doing? $300 a share. Oh my God. It's so beautiful. I should sell that at some point. Why are you investing in individual stocks? Because I called the bottom of Meta and I knew it was going up. I looked at the market and I said, that stock, that's definitely undervalued. Did they really go? My analysis was superb, okay? Go back and find the stream, okay? I think I bought that stock like 160, okay? My call was perfect. Everybody that came in with me, okay, came in optimally, okay? Listen, did it dip down to $90? Sure, maybe, okay. Could we have benefited another 100, 200% maybe? But okay, listen, my call was good enough. Better than Kramer, all right? Okay, I love you guys. It's been fun. I think I'll try to stream tonight. I'll bring my stuff with me. I think my phone and everything is charged, so we'll see. I love you guys. Be careful. Pisco promised he'd be on stream tonight. We like made plans. I got him a dinner reservation. I think it was like a $500 deposit just for his seat. If he's not there, I don't know why. If he just decided to ditch or has no loyalty or is a backstabber, I'm not sure. But hopefully he shows up because I literally put a lien against my beautiful $40,000 car to have him there. And I think if he doesn't show up, I think they just take my car and then I will be homeless because I live out of my car because I spent all my money getting this chair for Pisco. I love you guys. I'll see you later. Bye.
Welke is dit?
Dat weet ik niet.
Steunt zij ook?
Ja, zo is goed.
En dan dien jij me in.
Ik denk dat die wel gesteund wordt, motie gratis bier.
Mijn tijd. Sorry, mijn
Motie gratis bier.
Top. Kan ik daar nog een miljardje bij krijgen?
Ik kan er ook iets bij.
Ik wil nog iets voor die regio misschien.
Ja,
Ja?
is goed.
Dan alleen maar gezellig bijbabbelen.
Goed zo.
We hebben een mooie meerderheid voor rondje
Hatsé, zo regelen we
49.
dat.
Ik kom eraan.
Ik krijg wel gratis bier, denk ik, hier van mensen.
Kies voor het origineel.
Ja, hallo. Maar waar waren jullie dan afgelopen jaren?
Hallo, mogen wij hier in de gang even wat draaien? Top.
Kijk, het is wel gezellig hier.
Yes.
Oké, waar zijn we jongens?
We zijn in de Nieuwspoort.
Herman, ben je hier wel eens geweest?
Ja.
Ja, ze organiseren hier van alles en je hebt hier de sociëteit. En daar kunnen politici, journalisten zo
See you
elkaar
later.
eten of zonder elkaar.
Afgelopen dinsdag was het hier wel drukker.
Ja, maar misschien is het interessant, want daar boven de deur staat, achter deze deur geldt de nieuwspoortcode.
Ja, dus daar kunnen we ook niet...
Wat betekent dat?
Daar mag je niet filmen.
Ja.
En in
would you
principe
like to
wat je
fly
daar
to?
hoort is off the record. Toch?
Ja.
En ze hebben hier dus zaaltjes. Die kunnen politieke partijen bijvoorbeeld afhuren voor een presentatie. Hier is ook altijd de persconferentie van de minister-president.
Kom, laat even zien. Kom even laten
Maar
zien.
dinsdag was het hier dus hartstikke druk.
Nee, maakt niet uit. Kom even laten zien. Kom even.
Ik wacht even
Kijk,
hier.
kom even kijken. Dus hier is dan die persco.
En niet achteraan zitten rennen.
Afgelopen dinsdag was hier dus presentatie bijvoorbeeld van de partij
Van Omtzigt.
van
Ja,
Omtzigt.
lekker.
Pieter Omtzigt. Nieuw sociaal contract. Herman,
Ja.
kom heel even.
Nee.
Nee, we gaan even
Nee.
iets uitleggen.
Ach.
Kijk, we wilden even vertellen. We hebben die beelden van Nieuw Sociaal Contract, de presentatie van de partij. Die was dus hier.
Ja.
Er stond heel veel journalisten stonden hier. 6:15 was het gepland. Best wel een slim moment.
Vlak voor het 8 uur journaal.
Toen hadden we dus afgesproken, RTL en wij mochten van tevoren een interviewtje met Pieter Omtzigt. Omdat we het anders het 8 uur journaal niet zouden kunnen halen en er heel veel vragen waren. En
Dat was
we
hun
wilden-
eigen idee, hè?
Ja. Dus stond het hier helemaal bomvol met mensen. Maar toen hadden we dus daar stonden we opgesteld in een klein kamertje en moest de deur dicht eigenlijk.
Ja,
Dus
dus
even
Marleen die moest Pieter Omtzigt eigenlijk weghouden bij die andere journalisten en hem naar het
Succes.
goede kamertje leiden. En dat was vrij veel stress.
Ik weet, ze kwamen aan. Zullen
Ja.
we even dan laten zien
Ja.
wat het dan ging? Dan gingen we dus hierheen. Hier in een hoekje. Hier stonden steeds meer journalisten. En wij stonden hier opgesteld.
En toen
opeens
doken ze dit kamertje
doken ze hierin. Hierin, Pieter Omtzigt.
En zijn nummer 2.
En de deur
toen
ging dicht.
hup.
Ja, lekker rustig.
En allemaal stress op de gezichten natuurlijk. Toen
Ja.
ze erin
En wij
gingen,
dachten,
want
wat gaan ze
wat is
doen?
er aan de hand? En toen kwamen ze eruit en was het
Oh.
helemaal vrolijk.
Toen ging op een gegeven moment, die zei, ze zijn weg.
Ja.
En wij dachten, we moesten ook nog... Sorry. Wij dachten, shit, we moeten ook nog openingsjournaal
kan ook niet.
maken.
Nee. Maar het bleek dat ze gewoon heel pist waren omdat er op hun eigen site er een soort lek was, waardoor alle
Namen er
namen van de kandidaten al zichtbaar waren.
Maar in die zaaltjes zaten dus die kandidaten. Maar dat mocht dan nog niemand zien. Dus alle journalisten werden naar buiten gehouden. Nee, het was echt een totale toestand.
En waar heb je uiteindelijk met hem gesproken?
Nee, hier in het zaaltje, maar hier is nu de DJI-beëdiging.
Oké, dat is ook belangrijk. Dat is ook belangrijk.
Oké, we hebben het uitgelegd.
Maar daarna
Ja.
werden al die kandidaten bekendgemaakt. En wat was het opvallendste op die lijst?
Ja, het opvallendste was toch dat er veel mensen op zitten die een beetje zoals Pieter Omtzigt zijn. Specialisten op een bepaald vakgebied.
Bijvoorbeeld een jurist.
Bijvoorbeeld een jurist.
Mijn naam is Sandra Palmer en heel veel mensen kennen mij als auteur van het Memo Palmer, bekend van het toeslagenschandaal.
Een rechter.
Een rechter.
Ik ben tot vandaag moet ik zeggen, ik heb vandaag een functie neergelegd, 18 jaar lang rechter geweest, strafrechter.
Wethouder uit Friesland.
Ding is,
Een soepboer.
die zich heel kort introduceren.
Kunt u zichzelf in 3 woorden omschrijven?
Adjelle Soeboer.
Maar hadden ook heel veel mensen die zich hadden aangemeld. Dus hij heeft in no time van 2000 mensen.
Ja, het zijn bijna evenveel aanmeldingen als alle andere partijen bij elkaar.
Ja.
En hebben die mensen, weten ze al waarvoor ze...
Ik denk het niet.
Want
Maar ik
ze
heb
willen
ze
heel
best
graag
wel
mee
Weet je wel.
met hem natuurlijk.
Ja, en
Maar-
ze kennen zijn boek natuurlijk en zijn
Ja.
stukken
Ja.
en zijn ideeën, maar zijn verkiezingsprogramma is er nog niet.
Maar het is ook slim natuurlijk, als je eerst die namen doet. Dat is
Ja.
een moment waar jullie allemaal de stress van hebben. Dan komt het verkiezingsprogramma. Dan heeft hij natuurlijk allemaal, zet ook allemaal momenten waarop hij de aandacht heeft.
Ja, en net zoals dat hij nu niet wil zeggen of hij de premierskandidaat is van zijn partij, terwijl dat wel een terechte vraag is, want in veel peilingen is hij de grootste.
Ja.
Dat wil hij dan ook weer tot een later moment bewaren. Ik denk dat hij uiteindelijk het toch zelf gaat doen. Of dat hij zich verantwoordelijk voelt om het te gaan doen. Ik vond die reactie van hem op die vraag van jou vond ik eigenlijk het meest zeggend. Vond ik eigenlijk het meest veelzeggend.
Er wordt heel veel gekeken naar u. U was tot nu toe de partij, Nieuw Sociaal Contract. Maar nu moet u het ook een beetje uit handen geven.
Ja.
Vindt u dat moeilijk?
Ja, een klein beetje wel.
Waarom vindt u dat moeilijk?
Ja, ik ben natuurlijk gewend geraakt de afgelopen 2 jaar om alles in mijn eentje te doen. En het is op zich geweldig dat ik het nu met een team van topprofessionals mag doen. Het is echt wel een groeispurt die we aan het maken zijn.
Volgens mij was het een soort van opluchting versus totale verbazing dat het echt is gelukt om een partij op te richten in zo'n korte tijd.
Ja.
Dat kwam er volgens mij een beetje allemaal uit.
Andere partijen nog die wat hebben
Ja,
gedaan deze week.
veel,
Veel partijen, maar
moeten
veel meegemaakt dit weekend, ja.
Andere locatie? Ja. Oké. Kun je er gewoon in
jouw
de gang
dingen.
daar, toch? Kijk, daar gaan zitten.
Frisse lucht.
Is die meneer nog wakker?
De gele hesjes zijn weer terug. Nee,
Misschien
joh,
hier.
ik heb het hele weekend gewerkt, maar jullie ook volgens mij. Wat was er op zaterdag?
Zaterdag waren er
5 congressen.
Wat?
5.
En we beginnen weer bij de VVD. Ik vond die opkomst grappig.
Ja, dit is een hele sterke...
Hoe?
Nou, iets anders natuurlijk, maar...
Ik vond bij de VVD natuurlijk interessant om te zien hoe de nieuwe partijleider en een lijsttrekker Dylan Jezus het zou doen. En vooral met Mark Rutte in de zaal. Dat is
Ik kreeg
toch...
nog een luid applaus. Een beetje ongemakkelijk werd hij ervan.
Blijf jij maar zitten. Wij gaan wel staan.
Maar zij zit dus echt een soort een beetje op de wip. Van ze moet zeggen hoe goed Rutte was. En
Ja.
hoe fantastisch
Want ze moet al die kiezers
die 13
houden.
13 jaar lang het gedaan
Je
heeft.
moet die even eens koesteren.
Ja.
maar ik
En
wil ook
tegelijkertijd
heel
moet ze
iets
er
anders.
afstand van nemen. Want heel veel mensen zijn klaar met de VVD
Ja.
na 13 jaar Rutte. En ze willen dat de partij weer kleur op de wangen krijgt.
Dus dat deed ze een beetje zo.
En waar de politiek een verbindende rol had kunnen spelen, zag je juist daar de meeste verdeeldheid. Politici waren vooral met zichzelf bezig. Of stookten het vuurtje zelfs op. Tegen beter weten in. Voor het eigen gewin. En dat moet nu voorbij zijn.
Dus dat is natuurlijk wel moeilijk. En het is zo dat de vorige 3 premiers die Nederland heeft gehad, zeg vanuit de jaren 80 Lubbers, daarna Kok en daarna Balkenende, toen die weggingen stortte die partij in elkaar, hun partij. En dat willen ze bij de VVD voorkomen.
Henry Bontebal, die was ook dit weekend aan de beurt.
Ja.
Hebben we natuurlijk een pitch zien
We
gegeven.
kunnen via binnen even daar naartoe lopen. Zullen we dat doen dan? Het ruikt een beetje naar joint.
Ruikt hij naar wiet?
Hier, die kant op.
Ik zou het
Breed?
heel grappig vinden.
Staat iets in de fik.
Nou ja.
Oh, lekker
ja,
paf, ja.
Verboden te roken.
Ik was benieuwd naar Henry Bontebal, die we vorige week spraken.
Kijk uit. Van het CDA.
Ja, want die had ook zijn eerste congres natuurlijk.
Ja. Ik vond het wel heel opmerkelijk daar, de sfeer.
Optimisme, het enthousiasme.
Ja.
Misschien een beetje zo dat je denkt, nou die partij die staat echt heel slecht voor in de peilingen, maar dat was daar niet echt te merken.
De stemming is prima. Ik was gisteren bij de kapper om mijn nekhaar te laten scheren. En daar waren 2 mensen die zeiden, nou, ik geloof dat ik ook maar weer terug ga naar het CDA.
Kijk, ze hebben natuurlijk veel last van Pieter Omtzigt en van BBB en zo. En ze doen het zelf slecht. Maar
Vist in dezelfde vijver.
er lijkt daar zoiets te zijn van, nou, slechter dan dat het nu gaat, dat kan niet. Dus we kunnen alleen nog maar vooruitkijken.
Wat ook wel een opvallend stukje uit zijn toespraak was dat hij een kleine sneer naar Pieter Omtzigt en Nieuw Sociaal Contract, zijn partij kwam. Ja.
Een samenleving als contract maakt van de burger een klant en van de overheid een bedrijf. Dat is juist wat er de afgelopen jaren is misgegaan.
Ja, en wat je daar ziet is toch dat ze hopen, er zit veel hoop in.
Ja.
Van wij hebben een stevig verhaal over gemeenschapszin en wij zijn de wij-partij.
Wij zijn de wij-partij.
En ze hopen dat als er bijvoorbeeld bij BBB of bij Omtzigt dingen verkeerd gaan, of die blijken niet zo heel erg degelijk in hoe ze alles onderbouwen, dat de kiezer dan aan het eind gaat denken, nou weet je wat, dat CDA, dat weten we nog wel van vroeger, die zijn betrouwbaar
Ja.
en die Henry Bontebal zeker.
Ja.
Ja, en Balkenende was er dus wel en Wopke Hoekstra niet. Want ze willen natuurlijk dat het zo gaat als in 2002 toen Pim Fortuyn werd vermoord en kiezers voor zekerheid kozen. En toen ineens naar de onbekende Balkenende gingen.
Balkenende-effect, kan dat? Gewoon iemand helemaal vanuit het niets in één keer premier?
Je kunt niks uitsluiten. Ik denk hij zou voor verrassing kunnen zorgen.
Is het leuk tijd even voor een rubriekje?
Nou.
Dat hebben we al opgenomen.
Oh ja, dit is dan Rob Jetten.
En alleen Jette?
Nee.
We kwamen er ineens nog iemand tegen.
Maar dat zie je zo. Blijf kijken.
Onze lievelingsrubriek moet natuurlijk weer worden
Oh ja.
opgenomen. Rondje roltrap.
Oh ja, Rooitje Roltrap.
Vandaag
ik
is
denk
het...
wel dat dat is Rob Jetten. Die herken ik wel.
Daar
Er
komt
zijn
meneer
natuurlijk
Jetten.
mensen die... hallo.
Hallo meneer
Ja, je
Jetten.
loopt bij mij af. Nog
Ja,
gaat hallo.
Hoi.
Ja,
Hi.
dat
Hallo.
begrijp ik ook alweer. Hoe gaat het eigenlijk?
Ja, best wel goed eigenlijk.
Druk en ministerschap en campagne voeren.
Ja, dus je kunt een week vullen met minister zijn, maar je kunt ook een week vullen met het lijsttrekkerschap. Maar dat maakt het ook wel leuk.
Ja, wel leuk, maar ook echt slopend, denk ik. Ja.
Ja, ik probeer wel ook veel te slapen en een beetje te sporten, zodat je ook wel bezig blijft.
Wat doe je dan voor sport?
Kickboksen en crossfit. We proberen het wel 4 keer in de week te doen. Dus een beetje de uitlaatklep.
Meteen 4 keer in de week. Is dat ook wel tekenend? Dat als u iets doet, dat het dan meteen een beetje maniacaal is?
Ik ben wel fanatiek als je dat vraagt.
Fanatiek?
Ja.
Oh, sorry. Dat is, maar dan ook ambitie om straks de kooi in te gaan? Kooi vechten?
Ja, zo goed ben ik niet. En we hadden afgesproken dat het een campagne van de inhoud werd. Dus dan, dan mag je...
Lukt dat ook om een campagne van de inhoud van te maken? Ik bedoel, ja, je eigen campagne natuurlijk wel, maar alle anderen die...
Ja, kijk, wij hebben een verkiezingsprogramma geschreven dat 202 pagina's dik is. Dus genoeg inhoud om over te praten. Je zag denk ik vorige week bij de politieke beschouwingen dat ook de fractievoorzitters wel probeerden het een beetje rustiger en iets inhoudelijker te doen dan voorgaande jaren. Maar goed, de grote tv-debatten moeten natuurlijk nog komen, dus we gaan het zien.
Ja, want dat zei u ook in de speech afgelopen vrijdag, dat het wat rustiger moet.
Nou ja, kijk, ik vind zelf ook als je kijkt naar de afgelopen paar jaar, dan hebben we hier heel veel verhitte debatten ook gevoerd op onderwerpen waar dan vervolgens heel weinig op is gebeurd. En als je wil dat Nederlanders naar de politiek kijken en denken, ja, daar heb ik wat aan, want die lossen ook problemen op. Ja, dan helpt het ook als we iets meer interesse tonen in wat vindt dan de ander, wat vind ik daar zelf van en hoe kunnen we ook weer een stap verder komen.
Ja, want u was altijd de klimaatdrammer. Dat is afgelopen.
Ja, ik heb die geuzennaam toen met veel plezier omarmd toen die me werd gegeven. Omdat ook, toen had eigenlijk niemand het over het klimaat. Maar ik heb afgelopen jaren ook als klimaatminister wel gemerkt, heel veel mensen in Nederland en ook ondernemers, die zijn al lang overtuigd dat er wat moet gebeuren. Alleen die willen gewoon weten, wat moet ik dan doen en hoe helpt de overheid.
Wat hebben we nou met alle lijsttrekkers? Wat doen we nou met alle lijsttrekkers? Even die...
Ja, ik heb het gezien.
Een kleine pitch?
Oh,
ja, is goed.
Ja?
U mag naar boven of naar beneden met de roltrap?
Ja, ik doe maar naar boven.
Naar boven. Dan gaat er even iemand
Only ways up.
In tijden van oorlog op het continent, grote klimaatveranderingen, mensen die zich zorgen maken over hun portemonnee, ben ik ervan overtuigd dat Nederland sterker, eerlijker en schoner kan. Als we keuzes durven te maken voor meer klimaatactie, investeren in het allerbeste onderwijs en een eerlijke economie waar mensen die werken ook meer geld overhouden. En dan kijken hoe we samen de schouders eronder kunnen zetten om Nederland, dat mooie land, nog beter te maken.
door.
Zijn jullie nog niet gevallen bij deze opnames? Oké, gelukkig.
Ja, dit is awkward, want nou... Ja, dit is heel slim. Zwaaien.
Heel slim.
Maar er staan ook echt mensen.
Dan zwaai je ook terug.
Oké, dan moeten we heel even maken een paspoort, maar we doen het net anders. Kijk maar.
Ja, oké. En dan rustig blijven kijken.
Eén voor één. Doe maar.
Relatie.
Ja. Een hele leuke vent.
Dinsdag,
Op Prinsdag heb ik hem voor het
gepresenteerd.
eerst aan de wereld geshowd. Dat vond hij spannender dan ik zelf. Ja.
Huisdier. Ja,
Opleiding?
Ja, vond ik zelf heel saai. Bestuurskunde in Nijmegen. Ben ik een beetje doorheen gefietst, omdat ik vooral bezig was met sporten in die tijd.
Sporten?
Ja.
Mes op tafel of slimste mensen?
Oeh, nee, mes op tafel. Dat vind ik wel nostalgie eigenlijk.
Goed.
Ja.
Goed antwoord.
Ja.
Heb jij nog vragen?
Nee.
Heb jij nog vragen?
Ja, kijkt u wel eens naar de peilingen?
Heel af en toe. Heel
Ja,
af en toe.
niet te veel misschien,
Nee,
maar
weet je, het
doen.
is nog 50 dagen of zo.
50 dagen?
80%
Ja,
van de kiezers weet nog niet wat hij gaat stemmen. Dus, het
Dus
is
alles
gewoon,
is nog mogelijk.
Ja, precies.
Dat lijkt me de goede houding. Nou, hartstikke bedankt.
Dank jullie wel.
Succes.
Ja,
Dankjewel.
thanks.
Succes met
Dank
alles.
voor de tijd.
En met sporten en zo.
Ja.
Dag.
Doei. Jongens, we blijven heel even hier.
If we are to make these new lands...
Die Caroline zit daar te roken. Zullen we haar zo even proberen te vangen?
Hello, man.
Ik weet niet of ze ons ziet.
Ja? Leg jij de rubrieken uit aan de?
Nee, dat mag Herman mag alles doen vandaag.
De laatste keer dat ik er ben, dan moet ik alles doen. Mevrouw
Kijk,
van der Plas.
Nog
Hallo.
een lijsttrekker.
Hoe is het met u?
Ja, goed.
Ja, wij zijn een rondje binnen. Ja, daar heeft u al een keer ingezeten.
Ja.
Dat vonden we hartstikke leuk.
Ja?
We hebben een heel klein verzoek, want ik weet dat u heel weinig tijd heeft.
Ja.
We hebben een soort... Marleen heeft een rubriek bedacht.
Oh.
En dat is de rondje roltrap. Met andere woorden, de lijsttrekkers die we tegenkomen, die laten we 1 ritje op de roltrap maken.
Ja?
En dan is een soort elevator pitch. Kan dit gewoon uit de
Ja,
losse
moet
pols?
nu.
Nee, ja, niks moet, maar ik kan me voorstellen dat u zelf ergens heen moet.
Ja, ik moet terug naar het debat over
Oké.
faciliteren van ondersteuning.
Hele praktische dingen eigenlijk.
Hele praktische
Oh,
dingen.
Herman, het gaat beginnen.
Nou ja, als u opstapt en u kijkt in de camera en
Ja.
zegt uw stem op ons, want dit en dit en dit.
Ja.
Zet hem op.
Lieve mensen in Nederland, wij zijn een partij met gezond verstand van de praktische oplossingen. Wij hebben oog voor de regio, de bus moet weer kunnen rijden, het zwembad moet open kunnen blijven. Alle voorzieningen op het platteland zijn bijna allemaal weg. En wij gaan ervoor zorgen dat er een eerlijke verdeling is. Wij zijn de partij van het gezonde verstand. En jullie ook, denk ik. Doei.
Ik dacht, het is enkele reis naar boven. Oh, het gaat nog een keer. Nog meer tijd.
Heb ik nog meer tijd? Wij willen ook de boeren in Nederland behouden.
Je moet alleen nog vragen wat ze doen.
Oh, doe even niet boven.
Korpsfeesten.
Oh,
dit
Oh, dit gaat bijna mis.
Oh, gelukkig.
Ja, gaat goed.
En dan krijg je ook nog gratis bier.
Goed gegaan.
Doei.
Nou,
dankjewel.
Ze was opvallend boos laatst. Heb je dat al gezien, Herman?
Boos?
heeft,
Dat ze uitgelachen werd.
Ja,
Beetje.
dat even uitleggen. Er was een motie die ze heeft ingediend tijdens de algemene politieke beschouwingen. Om het minimumloon een beetje naar boven bij te stellen. En die dekking die moest het kabinet vinden. Nou, toen gebeurde dit.
Soms valt je mond even open bij een motie en dat is op dit moment wel het geval.
En u dient even een vrij grote, grove gratis biermotie in.
We ontslaan het kabinet wel een beetje van de plicht om zelf ook met voorstellen te komen. Hè? Er zit in heel...
Ja, de dekking moest komen uit de uitgavenkant.
Ja, dus dat is een beetje zo
Dat is
van,
een beetje
nou ja...
vaag.
Ja, bezuinig maar ergens
ja.
op.
Ja, we zijn nog maar ergens. Dus iedereen zei, ja, ho eens even, zo gaat dat hier niet. Nou, en vooral dat uitlachen, dat leek haar later wel dwars te zitten. Want toen zij hun eigen congres hadden, toen kwam ze er toch nog even op terug.
Lach maar. Op 22 november, dan lachen wij.
Is het nou verstandig om erop terug te komen? Oude campagneregel is, doe het niet. Het is dan vrij, je moet niet wrijven in een vlek. Maar zij deed het heel bewust wel. En wordt daardoor een soort van underdog. Kijk eens hoe de gevestigde orde mij uitlacht. Misschien dat ze dat
Is
wil
toch ook
creëren.
een beetje
Misschien
waar
dat
je
ze-
wil positioneren, denk ik, als BBB?
Ja. Maar ja, daar ligt het is wel ook een echt kwetsbaar punt van hen. Dat ze tot nu toe hebben gezegd, dit en dit gaat er fout. En je moet het helemaal anders doen. Maar hoe dan precies en hoe je het wil gaan betalen, daar zijn ze zelf nog niet heel duidelijk in.
Nee. Terug naar de show.
En dan, want rondje 48, daar stonden de Partij voor de Dieren centraal. En het gedoe, hoe is dat afgelopen? Of ja, afgelopen. Is het afgelopen?
Nee, het is niet helemaal afgelopen.
Dat
Ik
we-
was dus zondag in de Brabanthal in Den Bosch.
Ja.
En daar was het doel van die bijeenkomst was om inderdaad de ruzie achter zich te laten. Maar het gebeurt niet heel vaak. Maar op dit politieke congres werden we echt totaal verrast door wat Esther Ouwehand tijdens haar speech ineens zei.
Ik moet het zeggen, lieve mensen. Ik treed tijdelijk terug als lijsttrekker, zolang niet is opgehelderd wat er is gebeurd.
En ook de hele zaal was eigenlijk verbijsterd. Iedereen zat zo van, huh?
Vind jij dit nou een slimme strategie?
Om chaos te creëren bij je
Nou ja,
eigen
haar
partij.
idee is natuurlijk, ze hebben helemaal voor de verkiezingen af van die integriteitskwestie.
Ja.
Dus dat het bestuur gaat zeggen, we gaan er ook niet meer naar kijken, we weten, we hebben het gezien en het is niks en het is niks.
Ja.
Maar
Dus-
wie gaat, als dit niet voor de verkiezing wordt opgelost, is er dan een lijsttrekker? Wie gaat
Nou ja, dan moeten we
debatten doen, wie gaat het land in?
Als het niet voor 9 oktober is opgelost, dan hebben ze dus nog steeds Esther Ouwehand bovenaan staan. Maar dan
Die
is
wil
de
niet.
vraag of ze uiteindelijk nog verkiesbaar is.
Ja. Oh, blijf
Nou,
kijken.
En
dat
wat-
was verder heel
wat- wat-
gestructureerd toch allemaal?
Ja.
Wil, vertel even over die dagvoorzitter.
Ja, vertel
Ja,
eens over.
dat was een...
Kijk er maar.
Ja.
Fijn, kijk zelf maar.
Echt nog 2 mensen het woord gegeven. Tenzij je iets super dringends hebt wat brand new is. Gaat veel te snel, veel te veel afgekapt. Nee, we zijn klaar. Dan is het een punt van orde.
Ik heb ook een punt van orde.
Ik heb ook een punt van orde. Sorry jongens, maar we moeten echt meisjes, non-binaire personen, iedereen. We moeten allemaal even door.
Allereerst ben ik blij dat...
Nou heb ik even een puntje. Ik weet toch zeker dat ik daar ook 2 vrouwen zag staan. Wie staat te praten? 2 mannen. Ja, dat kan niet hè.
Ten eerste ben ik non-binair en daarbij heb ik overlegd met de andere 2 lijsttrekkers.
Dat was een ingehuurde dagvoorzitter. Die een
geld
beetje
gekregen.
streng moest zijn.
We gaan even door.
Oh.
Nou, wat ook niet zo heel lang geleden is, zijn pas Prinsjesdag. En kijk, dan heb je dus het kabinet, opeens Rutte en Kaag. En die zeiden wel, iedereen belooft nu van alles. Maar jongens, let op, zoveel is hier nou ook weer niet mogelijk in Nederland. Dat is wel...
Het is niet gratis en het gaat niet zomaar.
Pas op voor al te grote bewegingen, want dat kan wel eens grote gevolgen hebben voor onze economie.
Ja, daarna kreeg je wel 2 dagen
debat.
algemene
Nationale
politieke
rouw.
beschouwingen.
Ja, waar natuurlijk ook al een soort verkiezingsstrijd was begonnen. Ik zag Wilders en Baudet ineens met elkaar...
Ja.
Spannend toch?
Maar is het waar dat u zou hebben gezegd dat het drama in New York, 9/11, dat een inside job is? En is het ook waar dat u zou hebben gezegd dat de maanlandingen nooit hadden plaatsgevonden?
Heer Baudet.
Ik heb gezegd dat ik
niet het gevestigde verhaal geloof over 9/11. De maanlanding, daar geldt eigenlijk hetzelfde voor. Hè?
De heer Wilders
Nou, volgens mij bent u al vrij ver op weg naar de maan.
En Wilders deed dat overigens ook op een opvallend moment met Klaver, waar die Klaver als voorman van Verenigd Links nu even in dit debat aanviel op het wachtgeld van Timmermans.
Trots heeft om te zeggen, ik verdien 3 ton. Ik heb jarenlang 2-3 ton verdiend. Ik ga nu voor die paar maanden, tot ik in december beëdigd word, ga ik gewoon. Zonder wachtgeld.
Dan bleek achteraf weer dat Timmermans niet de enige is die het wachtgeld er stopt. Want Caroline van der Plas had dezelfde kritiek van dat wachtgeld, waarom zet hij dat niet stop?
Als u vindt dat een politicus dat niet mag gebruiken, kom met een voorstel om het af te schaffen.
Dat is wel wat anders dan dat je de campagne mee gaat voeren. Voor een andere baan in de Tweede Kamer. Vindt de heer Klaver dat ook niet een klein beetje?
Nee, vind ik niet.
En dan bleek later dat Mona Keizer ook gewoon nog wachtgeld krijgt.
Mevrouw Keizer, heeft u wachtgeld?
Ja.
Gaat u campagne voeren?
Deels wel, ja, klopt. Maar ik heb ook...
Nee,
dat klopt.
Snapt u?
Ja.
Dus dan snap ik deze opmerking niet goed.
Nou, we lopen een beetje gekke rondjes. Maar dat komt omdat degene die...
We moeten treffen.
We moeten treffen.
Ja.
Ben je eenmaal?
Melancholisch?
Nou, ik vind het jammer dat ik de 50 niet ga halen.
Heel droevig. Dit is wel heel droevig.
Ik neem natuurlijk met pijn in mijn hart afscheid. Maar ik weet dat mijn opvolging in goede handen is.
Ja? Je bent wel altijd welkom hè, om even een rondje te wandelen.
Nee, je wil altijd even een rondje wandelen met ons.
Ja, nee, maar ik kom hier nog wel.
En Marleen wil meedoen met de slimste mens.
Nee, ik wil het.
Jullie allebei, 2025 zijn jullie de eerste. En jullie mogen je nieuwe partner gaan haal hem binnen.
Nou,
Oké, dames en
Marleen?
heren, u kent hem misschien wel.
Van het journaal.
Daar is hij.
Je laatste wijze woorden.
Gerry Eikhoff, welkom in de club.
Ja, welkom in Den Haag.
Welkom in Den Haag.
Gerry, welkom.
Hi Gerry.
We hebben net een heel chaotisch rondje achter de rug.
Dit is hem, Gerry Eikhoff.
Jullie lopen zo langzaam, zag ik.
Ja, dat deden we omdat we jou zagen zitten. We wisten niet precies waar. Dus...
Dit was jouw laatste?
Ja, dit is mijn laatste. Ik ga hier weg. Dit is hun biotoop. Ja. En ik voel me altijd zo'n beetje een soort safari, ontdekkingssafari ben ik altijd. En zij, nou ja...
Begeleiders, wij zijn de rangers.
Ja, jullie lopen een beetje, jullie leggen mij uit hoe het zit. En af en toe mag ik domme vragen stellen en dan...
Een beetje een wildpark waarvan je niet weet wat voor dieren er precies rondlopen.
Voor wie hem niet kent, Gerry Eikhoff is natuurlijk al jaren verslaggever bij de NOS.
Ja.
Maar het leek ons leuk dat jij nou met al jouw ervaring bij de NOS eens eventjes van dichtbij komt bekijken hoe dat hier gaat in de campagne richting de verkiezingen.
Het is hartstikke makkelijk, man.
Zie je dat zitten?
Is leuk? Is leuk?
Ja joh, je loopt wel een beetje rond.
Je gooit af en toe eens een onderwerp
zo
op.
de kamer is van, ja, ik weet het ook niet. En dat is super makkelijk.
Het is niet erg als je een beetje een stomme opmerking maakt.
Nee, want dat kan ingeknipt worden.
Ja?
En hier is het, hè? Dit is het
Ja.
gebouw bij ons.
Daar is zo over gang. Daar gaan we even heen.
Ja,
en daar, hier, kijk, dat ding.
Wat?
Dat was
Die
gisteren,
hoge?
nee, dat was gisteren op tv. Hieronder zit dus een enorme schuilkelder.
Echt?
Waar de regering 2 weken zou kunnen overleven in geval van atoomaanval.
Oh.
En dat is de, als ik het goed begrepen heb, hè, want ik
De luchtinlaat.
Ik stond dit dus een beetje te koken, is dit de luchtkoker. En
Dat, nou, zie je.
Ja, maar dat
ik vind dat toch snel een meerwaarde hoor, van deze...
Je moet even, nee, gewoon tv, je moet even terugkijken.
Wat heb jij nou?
Voor je.
Oh,
kijk
cadeautje voor
Maar we
Herman.
krijgen nog echt groot cadeau, maar dat komt nog.
Mag ik dit uitpakken?
Ja, dit is gewoon leuk aandenken. Voor jou als quizmaster.
Tweede Kamer de Staten-Generaal. City Tour.
Omdat jij zoveel spelletjes houdt.
Wat gezellig. Ga de strijd aan in het hart van de democratie en win het Tweede Kamerbordspel.
Niet gezegd dat jij dat ook ooit krijgt, hè?
Ja, nou ja.
Tegen die tijd is de Tweede Kamer misschien niet meer. Hè? Als ik nog net zo lang verder ga, zat ik achter me.
Ja.
Nou jongens, het was me echt een genoegen. Ik ga jullie enorm missen. Ik ga jullie heel erg missen. Ik ga de ploeg heel erg missen. Maar ik laat jullie achter in goede handen met Gerry. En een hele spannende periode voor de boeg. Met de verkiezingen die eraan zitten te komen. En ik klik altijd en ik like altijd, doe duimpjes omhoog. En die televisiering hebben we het niet meer over, toch?
Volgend jaar.
Dat doen we andere keer.
Net niet, man.
We hebben een kwaliteitsimpuls.
Ja, nu moet het lukken. Nu moet het lukken. Dank jullie wel. Liefste, jij mag, dit mag hoor. Dat mag. Ja,
Weet
dat
je
is
nog?
wel een heel lang.
Toen met Rutte en Macron.
Gerry, zet hem op met die twee, hè? Ze zijn best aardig.
Oké.
Dag
Ik ook
allemaal.
wel hoor.
Over 2 weken, rondje 50.
Gaan we gewoon door.
Met onze nieuwe man.
Okay.
Hey now! Hey now. It's your boy PSA Sitch here with another Tuesday show with everyone's favorite monetary. I was going to say something else. Everyone's favorite guy
Monetary-
who talks about MMT.
Monetary
Not
milker,
Yeah.
milker theory.
As the wind on the plains.
What were you gonna say? Come on, don't leave us
worry
hanging
about
here.
it. Introduce our guest, Adam.
Okay,
Lovely
so
guest.
and we're also here with a great new guest, the UBI guy. His name is Conrad, and we're going to talk a little
Have a
bit
look at my
about
meats,
UBI. Now,
friend.
we oftentimes give Hassan Piker a hard time on the show because we all know he's an unavowed socialist, right?
Yes.
Yet he's done absolutely nothing to further the cause of worker co-ops or any of the things that he advocates for, right?
Mm-hmm. Of
Now,
course.
now Conrad here, he's the UBI guy, right? He's advocating for UBI.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Conrad, have you done anything to actually implement UBI? Have you taken any steps to see if this will work?
Yeah, I've been sort of the, you know, mad scientist in the basement for the last 7 years and just starting to share it. But we ran a pilot. We were doing a docu-series about the people receiving it. I built a calculator to sort of communicate UBI and what's possible economic-wise. And the thing we're starting to present right now is this this online app that we're building for UBI, where it's a UBI without waiting for the government. It's called Commingle. And the idea is, you know, let's just do it ourselves. You know, financial technology is powerful. Let's just build it.
Wow, I love this.
So
Imagine that, like someone who advocates for something and actually gets his hands dirty building the thing.
So
isn't that amazing,
Stick
Sitch?
Hassan on me right now? Am I going to get in trouble with another internet person?
No, not you. Well, look, we are already in trouble with Hassan. You are perfectly innocent here. So
Sure. So okay. So how's the pilot work? How is this UBI privately funded?
So the pilot was for the docu-series, and that was just philanthropically funded, like all the other pilots going on.
Mhm.
Meant to be more of a demonstration. I actually take issue with calling those things pilots because a pilot is something that, if it works, you could then just put it into practice and implement it. But all of the pilots going on, for who knows about the ones going around the country, mayors for a guaranteed income, are essentially a pile of money from some rich guy or from the government that's getting spent down to demonstrate that generally people, when they're given money, use it well, right? So those are
Mhm.
the pilots. The platform.
Before you move on, what exactly was it that you guys did?
So this was 7 years ago. My wife, Dea, was looking for a new documentary project and asked me if I want to help produce. And she does social justice, environmental justice type films. And I'd been swept up in this idea of UBI from an article I read.
Mhm.
So we decided to do something about UBI, and we wanted to swing for the fences and do more than just have, you know, a bunch of economists or whatever talking about it. We wanted to show it. You know, human stories are the most interesting and honestly useful. So we spent a couple of years and we fundraised and we raised the money for our own pilot. And we wanted it to be different than the other ones going on. We wanted it to be all different kinds of people, different walks of life, all around the country, different backgrounds, different incomes, and then we just filmed it to see what would happen over the course of a couple of years. And we were coming at this not to, you know, advocate for UBI, but more to investigate it, kick the tires. So we picked the scarier stories. We picked, people with a drug addiction history, whatever, to see, like, will it fail the way people think it'll fail? Will it work out? We'll just see. And
So
that
you
was
raised a bunch of money and then just gave it to people. Like, how much did you give to people?
We set it up to be $1,000 a month per adult and
Okay.
$333 per child in a household, and they got it individually. So, like, if they had split up or whatever, they would go their separate ways with their own incomes. We did it on a weekly basis, which is unique among the trials. But I've had enough low-end jobs in between careers where it's like even a biweekly check, you're struggling on day 13. So we had it every Wednesday for like 2.5 years. People were getting something auto-deposited into their bank accounts.
And how many people were part of this?
It was 11 households. So, and we actually let it grow and shrink with the households, like the baby was born or something like that. And we didn't tell them ahead of time because we didn't want people to be like, sweet, let's have a baby, we'll get paid. But it was around 20 to 22 people across 10 states.
And this is all filmed? Can we watch this?
Not yet. The whole thing is filmed. The whole pilot is done. We're in post-production. It's been a nightmare of a few years trying to sell anything to the streamers. They want celebrities and sports shows, and sometimes cooking contests. But we're working on it. We've got probably once we get picked up, maybe a year, and we're a year of editing until we can release. And sort of the goal is to have this platform I was talking about out and ready by the time we release, so that if people get interested and curious enough about the idea to want to see it in practice, we'll have it there waiting for them. Like, you want to see if this falls on its face, you want to try it out, you believe in it, whatever. There's, X thousand people trying it out right now on Commingle. Why don't you join and see? Or, follow along and watch it crash and burn, whatever people's are. We're very experimental. And
no, that's smart. So I know, like, a lot of people, because whenever we talk about UBI, a lot of people get very worried. They have this idea that, like, oh, everyone's gonna get the money, they're gonna sit around at home smoking weed and playing video games and all things like that nature. So what happened with you guys with this pilot, not pilot?
I mean, so I'll start with my general, what I've found in general from all the research, and what we showed in our pilot as well, is that it's not even so much the amount as having the heartbeat of money that sort of gives people a light at the end of their tunnel to attack the things that they've wanted to do for a very long time and were waiting until they're in a better situation, or the obstacles that they had for a very long time that they're like not even paying attention to because they didn't know how to yet. Like, people got really interested in their finances all of a sudden, and like people even surprised us that they were about to lose their home and they didn't even know because they weren't looking at the mail, and they got themselves out of debt and things like that. What I figured would happen coming in is, like, we made it 2.5 years, because I figured like a year is enough to stop the bleeding in your life and maybe get a little safer, and then maybe start dipping your toe in the water of doing stuff. But what really happened, as soon as people trusted it was coming, and it only took like a month, people just kind of launched into their plans, like investing in, someone built a home garden because they were nearing retirement and they wanted to be sustainable. Someone's, got a used car to get to an internship. They were in college. Someone else left their crappy job at a payday loan place, left their crappy apartment, drove across the state, stayed with their mom for 6 months, saved up money and put a down payment on their first house, and had the time when they were looking for work to take an extra little breather and get better and better jobs. So what I found out is that generally people used it as the space to be the more productive person that they wanted to be. And this is backed up in lots and lots of trials. The real question is this going to be true if we did it federally? If we did it like across the entire country, would you get a big withdrawal from the workforce and people playing video games, or would people pursue their passions? And to the extent it's one or the other, can only really be found out if we try the thing. So that's kind of the idea behind Commingle, is to build something that can grow and scale as big as possible and see where the limits are of how much it is an incentive and productivity driver and how much it is, what people fear. I think a big part of it is about the size of the UBI. One of the things I disagree with a lot of like my progressive fellow advocates is, people can get kind of carried away with like, well, it should be 3,000 a month, or it should be 5,000 a month. It should be it's a guaranteed livable basic income. And, really, if you're living a good life, you should be able to see the opera sometimes. And I mean, let's just start with like basic essentials. For me, I am okay with people having to work for their right at anything, like luxurious or fun or whatever, but guaranteeing like what we do for our kids when we have kids growing up. We don't lock them in a closet and punish them until they succeed. To make sure they got food and that they're living indoors and that they have like support and time to try. But then we accompany that with expectation and accountability. That's kind of how I see UBI starting. I don't know if, the luxury space communism future that the AI is ushering in is going to mean in 100 years, we can all just be rich and do whatever we want. But for now, it's like, I know and I've seen the impact of a small amount of money on freeing people up to actually think more about how can I pursue my better self or my ideas, and how can I be productive, and just kind of dig out from the weight we're all, like so many of us are carrying,
Right. So for the families that you guys chose, how did you choose them?
It was cool. It was kind of a fun story too. Most of these pilots are like numerical and quantitatively rigorous, like 1,000 people randomly selected. But we're doing a docuseries and we're telling stories, so we casted it, right? And the idea is that we know that this is not statistically rigorous. We can point to those other trials, but it was about the stories, and we wanted the stories to be diverse and deal with a lot of topical issues of the day. So we had an indigenous woman, going back to the reservation she partly grew up on and teaching at a local school and trying to build her art business. We had a former coal miner who was sort of marooned in Hurricane Alley down in North Carolina, and trying his best to get out of there, but had been wiped out by multiple hurricanes. And Hurricane Florence hit while we were filming. And we had like a Filipino immigrant student in North Carolina. We had a homeless person in New York City. And we had someone with a drug addiction history in New Mexico. So it was really fun to like start filling these roles, and we would have loved to do a lot more. I fantasized about when we were driving 10,000 miles around the country at a time, like building up our stories and our people. Like, man, I wish a cop pulled me over on this road trip, because then I would ask him if he wanted to be in the. It'd be super interesting to see what does a police officer do when getting a basic income. I don't know. It just kind of changed the way I thought about everybody, and the way we found them. We started out by interviews on the streets, planning on sort of surreptitiously picking everyone, because we didn't have the money at that point. We were just building the stories. And so we started out in New York City when we were living there, and we would ask 2 questions. The first question is, what do you think about UBI? And it was 2016, so we first had to tell almost everyone what it was. And the split was like 50-50. Like, I think it's a great idea, it would help people, or I think it's a terrible idea, no one will ever work again. And then the next question was, okay, let's focus on you. What would you do with the UBI? Say like they passed it and there's $1,000 a month coming into your bank account. What would you do? And 99% of the answers I could justify. First of all, I believe them. Like, I'd give more to crowd funds because I care about that, or I'd work harder on this, or I'd spend more time with my kids, or I'd get a gym membership or whatever. These are all things that I can justify as they're boons to the economy, boons to the local just environment, and people being better to each other. So there was like a very marked split between how people perceived how other people would use a basic income and how they perceived how they would. And so that's kind of what we're trying to like poke at and investigate a little, is like which perception is more accurate. And what we found is it's more the latter. It's more that people, they use it for good stuff, and they find it. There's been like 100,000 people have been part of UBI pilots around the world, and they always find the same thing: crime drops, vice drops. People start more businesses, just because people want to do shit. Anyway, so the that was how we were going to get people, is like anyone who was interesting enough and different enough and added a new lens, we'd get their information if they gave it to us and surprise them a year later and be like, haha, remember we interviewed you about this idea? Do you want to do it and have some money and, have that moment on camera or whatever? And we did get a few people that way. But we kind of got our plans sort of accelerated a bit. We also got a few people that were through connections and stuff, like the indigenous woman in South Dakota, a couple of white filmmakers rolling up on the reservation saying, who wants money? Seemed a little icky.
Right.
But we knew people from, Dea's former work and stuff. It's like, who would be right for this, and personal outreach. And those two things got us about a third of our participants. We were trying to drum up a little buzz to raise funding early on. And we got an article in Fast Company, and it was a nice article, great writer. I think the editor put in like a cheeky headline and said something so when the headline came out, well, first thing is we woke up to thousands and thousands of emails, and looked at the headline, and they had said, "You want free money? Apply to be in this documentary." We're like, oh no, we said nothing about applications. Oh crap! It got like picked up by Penny Hoarder and Time.com, and like George Takei shared it, and it's just like thousands of emails, and I'm like trying to respond to all of them, and they're all just terrifyingly sad. We decided to go with it and say, you know what, let's just file all these away. We made a little application place it was free form. It's like, just give us 2 sentences. Who are you and how would you spend the money? And people responded to any degree from like, I want money, to like 8 pages. And it was just, it was heartbreaking stories. I read like 4,000 of them. And
so did you take half the people that said, look, I'm just going to blow it on weed and video games, and half the people said they were going to do something good with it? Or was it all people who were just going to do something?
I think when they said that, but we wanted to have people that had like diversity of answers. But the way it worked, there was only one that like we knew straight from reading it. Like we started like 500 of them. I'm like, we have 20 slots. This isn't going to work. There was one that was just so damn funny, and I don't want to like give it away, that we're like, okay, pretty sure we're gonna go see these guys in Texas, and we want them. But everyone else, it's like we can't interview all these people and select. So what we did is we had our 6 stories around the country, and we just started driving around the country. And when we were going to a new area, like say we're going towards Columbus, right? Columbus, Ohio, or we're going towards the Ohio area, like, well, we could use like a manufacturing story. People are worried about automation, taking away jobs. It's the Rust Belt, whatever. There's a lot going on that's worth talking about there. And so we said, where's a lot of industry going on there, and a lot of manufacturing and a lot of plants? And it was like Columbus, Ohio. So then we went into our database of 12,000 emails and typed Columbus, Ohio, and got like we had like 30 applications from Columbus, Ohio, or maybe it was like 10.
Interesting.
And the thing was, it wasn't people being displaced from manufacturing jobs. We had like 7 applications from trans couples in Columbus, and we're like, okay, I guess that's interesting. That's the story Columbus wants to tell us. And we went and interviewed a couple, and we're like, okay, we'll tell this story. And it kind of went that way for a lot of our stories, is that sort of the country and the applications told us what stories to tell. And there were a lot more would have told.
There's 6 stories all together. So can you give us the breakdown?
There's 11?
Yeah. Okay. So you've got a trans couple.
So we have a trans couple we have a trans couple, a homeless man. We have a Lebanese woman who was working toward her citizenship and was a survivor of domestic violence. We had like our picturesque middle-class family, a black family in North Carolina, scientists and changing careers and young kids. We had a college-age woman. She was a sophomore when we started at UNC, and graduated right around when we were ending. She graduated into the pandemic. We actually overlapped 6 months with the pandemic, so that was super interesting to see all these separate stories go into like a shared thing that we all kind of had a version of.
So the pandemic plays a role in the movie?
It does. It wasn't even part of the initial intent, obviously.
Yeah, yeah. You
And
can't play in a
were,
pandemic.
We were. It was funny. We raised money for 2 years, and we thought at that time we were going to release in early 2020 to be like part of the presidential election conversation. And so we made the argument to our funder, our biggest funder, and said, you know what? It's not a good look to drop these people off their basic income right when we're releasing something about it. So can we extend it 6 months? And he was like, that sounds reasonable. And then pandemic hit. So it was like, oh shit, we've got a pandemic episode now, and we got to see how people fared through that.
So is it like a television series? Is it like a 13? So it's 11 episode television series where you're following each of the people, right? Is that the way it's set up?
And it's a lot of it's dependent on who picks us up and where it goes. We've done a lot of versions of playing with it, with the structure, like should it be one episode per, like each one's a chapter. And what we came down to, the most compelling version of it that we're thinking right now is kind of the way we experienced it. Everyone going together chronologically. A lot of the stories have overlap, so you don't need to show the same sorts of things over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
And it's during moments of time in history, you know, Charlottesville and Hurricane Florence and like riots and pandemic all happening at the same time. So we want to see everyone in the same world at the same time. So I talk about it more as like the Game of Thrones style. You know, there's like 13 different stories in Game of Thrones, and you pick back up with the ones that have something going on at that time.
Yeah,
And
totally.
certain stories will have a lot
What are
more.
the dates? When did it start? Just so I have a idea of what's going on in the world.
We staggered them in because it was a son of a bitch to raise the money. So we started them slow, but it was approximately like mid 2017 to mid 2020.
Okay,
and everyone got
27
about 2.5 years somewhere in there.
It's 2017 to 2020. Wow. Okay, so there's a lot going on
It was
between
an
those
interesting
years.
time in American history. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, because Trump was elected in 2016, and
Yeah.
there was obviously a lot going on with that. So, because you mentioned Charlottesville, and I was wondering, because you're talking about the Charlottesville.
The
I
Charlottesville
don't. What do you
story-
even call it? the tiki torch thing.
Yeah, we weren't even we were just building our stories then. We hadn't started the basic income, but one of the people we were interested in was we were driving around the country and we're like, hey, we're coming through Virginia. You want to meet with us? And super interesting guy from coal country, whatever. And he's like super charismatic and very progressive. Sounded, but I don't know. He said, yeah, I'll interview you. You're probably gonna have to come get me out of jail because I'm gonna be over at the Unite the Right thing in Charlottesville. And
That's what it is. I couldn't remember what it was
we were
called.
researching it and we're like, oh, this seems like this could be interesting and scary. Let's just go film with him there. And so we were there at the whole Charlottesville.
Oh my God.
I was like, me and Dea were like 3 feet to the left of where the car hit. Like it was
Oh, wow.
traumatizing. It was,
Jeez.
and like that was one of my first experiences of just how wrong the mainstream media gets almost anything. Like when you're on the inside of something and you see how it goes down and you see the coverage, it's like, oh my gosh, nobody actually knows what it was like, you know, and nobody ever will.
Well, what did the media get wrong?
Yeah.
I'm interested. Let us
Well,
know.
Immediately, I mean, some of this has been corrected, but immediately, like the New York Times was talking about how like some car accidentally hit some other car, which hit another car, which then hit some people, and then someone ended up dying. And it's like, have you even looked at like the videos on Twitter? Like the guy who was driving the car mowed through the crowd as if he didn't see the other cars and he thought he was going to get out the other side. Like it was just, I mean, I wrote a whole article about this and my experience in it and just sort of my takeaways. But what I remember most is like an explosion of shin bones, you know, and people flying through the air and my heart jumping into my throat. You know, it was chaos. It was, and the whole day was scary as hell because like the whatever your stance of it, there was just a shitload of guns there on both sides of people that are keeping the peace, right? There's the 3%ers and then there's the, you know, the progressives.
Careful with the both sides thing. Don't watch out. We don't want to.
Well, there were two very clear sides there, right?
Mm-hmm.
There were, and one side was
Well, so you went up to 2020. Did you get up to the January 6th stuff?
Well, wait. Before we move off of this, the person that you were following, were they like one of the, I don't know if they were Antifa or like the far left people, or were they one of the white nationalist people?
I don't think they identified with Antifa,
Mm-hmm.
but they were there against the white nationalists,
Okay.
Protesting against them, and they were they actually they opted out of the docu-series because they were afraid that some of their fellow protesters would be targeted. I had trans friends and things like that, and they were afraid for their safety.
Mm-hmm.
But one funny story there was at one point I wanted to get a view of him. He was like somewhere in the crowd, like fighting with one of the the khaki pants, white shirted supremacist guys.
Right.
And there was a tussle going on, and all the tear gas was flying. And I went up to the entrance, up the hill part, so that I could try to see him with my little GoPro or whatever. And that's where that's like in the park part where the supremacists are.
Mm-hmm.
And I know how I look. I'm of German descent, whatever. And I was standing up there. And
were you wearing khakis? Oh no.
No. I was wearing like regular person clothes. But a picture of that moment ended up in the New York Times, and some friend from high school saw me in it and like was kind enough to reach out to me and say, "Hey, I saw you in the Times protesting the supremacists." I was like, "Thank you for making that assumption." I was just filming,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was a crazy day.
Was there anything else that was like that everyone got wrong about that beyond the initial motivation of I forget the guy's name, the guy that killed the woman?
I mean, I don't want to get, I'm probably too close to it, and I don't want to get conspiracy-y, but there was some
get there. Go there.
Crazy stuff that happened that had me messed up for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Like after the supremacists left the park, it was scary all day. There's guns everywhere. Everyone saying they were going to protect everyone with their guns, and I'm like, it could have been a much worse day. And eventually the National Guard came in and they kind of pushed everyone out, and all the white supremacists left, right? And all the protesters who we followed went to this other little park and were regrouping. And word came from somewhere that some of the Unite the Writers were in another part of town, like a mile away, harassing some people of color in some apartment complex. And everyone's like, okay, we're going to go down there, or we're going to stand up for these people, whatever. So we're walking with
The
them.
war chief has
And
instructed me to study all
everyone-
kinds of weapons and armor. He has sent me here to the hub of both the Tauran and Orc cultures in the Barrens to meet as many travelers as possible and to learn about the cultures of the Barrens. He feels there's something to be learned from even the most pathetic of cultures, like the Quilboar or Centaur.
A good sample, adventurer. A good sample indeed. Those travelers can no longer lord over me the ore they found. Now that you have been successful, I shall get to work on it immediately. If it proves strong enough, I will send a weapon crafted from the material back to the war chief to show him our success. I shall not forget your help, adventurer.
Was marching, and it had started turning pretty celebratory because everyone was getting the feeling that it was over, like they'd won or whatever. And we were walking down the main road, I think it was Water Street, or we were turning onto Water Street or whatever. And we had lost our guy, and we stepped onto the sidewalk to make time against the crowd and try to catch up to him, and turn that corner, and it was like, oh, this is packed. And we look back at the video, and there's like hands waving everyone on up the corner. And we noticed at the time, it's like, wait, the place we're supposed to be going is that way. Like we got directed the wrong way up the street, into this, what felt like a cattle call. And that's where we got slammed into by the car. So I don't know if it was someone just screwing up on the directions, but in the moment of looking at the stuff after, it felt like we were guided in that direction so that we could be hit by a car, And I was glad we had stepped onto the sidewalk, because I would have been one of those people that got hit.
Who was
Wow.
doing the guiding?
It's we have footage of it, but it's just like we just see some hands, whatever. You're just following the crowd at that point.
Right. Yeah. I understand. Yeah. In terms of like the size, how many people were there, and was it like equal split between the forces, or was one side like clearly bigger?
I think there were definitely more counter protesters, but they're like not like non-supremacist side.
Right.
But there was
That's good.
a strong showing from both. There were definitely hundreds of both, and then lots of National Guard and yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay, Adam, what were you asking?
Well, just so this is a very interesting time period you have here. Did you film stories all the way up until January 6th?
Let's see, that was January 6th, 2021, I guess.
Yeah, that would have been 2021. So.
No, I guess we had finished probably late or early fall 2020. We did end up doing some look back interviews and stuff afterward, to get people's, like we did the 2022 round of interviews with people to like, okay, now they never were required to film with us to get the money and everything, but there's like, you're always worried about performativism. So it's like, now there's no more money coming from us, there's no anything or like through with us or whatever. So what did you really think about the project, or now that you have time to look back, So we've filmed some more stuff since it ended, just to see where people are at, what it was like after it ended, and but yeah, during the pilot, while the money was going through our nonprofit thing who was running the UBI trial, that ended by mid to like fall of 2020.
Cool. And so you wrap it up. You've got all of this footage, and you start editing together a like television series. You're going for 11 episodes, and you're kind of shopping it around. Okay, so
we kind of see like 10, 40 minute episodes, and
right.
It's also going to depend on what the streamers want or the networks want.
Right. So you're shopping around like Netflix and Amazon and those kind of places.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. Is the app in the documentary, or this is just a separate thing?
No, this is its own thing. But anytime you do a sort of a cause or an issue documentary, a lot of people think it's done when you're done filming, or when you release. It's really only like halfway done, because if you're gonna really accomplish something with it, it's more than just like getting a sale and getting some views. You see what you can do. If you're like save the whales, then you try to like push legislation to save the whales. Us coming from a place of not trying to be political and not trying to push actual, like, we need to do this through Congress or whatever. That's where the app came out of in great degree. Is like, how do we do something meaningful with the attention and excitement and curiosity that might come out of the docuseries? And that's where let's just build it came from. Like, why don't we build a mechanism that lets people try this out and test it in a much bigger scale?
Okay, so let's explain the app a bit. How does that work?
So it's like its own little government that its sole purpose would be to redistribute, pool a certain amount of income among the members, in order to guarantee every single member never goes a single week without some income. So essentially, what we're starting at with the numbers, and these are adjustable over time. Eventually, we want the membership to vote on how it should work. We're starting at 7% is the amount you pledge. So it's almost like a 7% flat tax on income that goes into this government, whose only job is to take it all in, chop it up in equal pieces, and send it all right back out with as little waste and bureaucracy as possible, like automated. So people will connect their bank accounts and have their income tracked. And then, so say you make $100 in a week. It's a slow week, or where you don't have a lot of income in general. You put in 7, or you put up 7. You don't actually, nothing gets transacted until we do all the calculations. So you put up 7. If the payout that week is $50, which is like the average contribution, then you come out $43 ahead, right?
Okay, let me see if I can explain it. So everybody who signs up for the app has their wages monitored, and when those wages come in, 7% of their wages go into this app, into a pool of money, and then the pool of money is just split evenly between all of the members and given back out. So you're putting in 7%. Like if I have a good month, I may put in 100 and get 50 back. If I have a bad month, I may put in $5 and get 50 back.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly. And so the idea is there's like different value adds for different people. Like for everyone, it's being part of a community that all has each other's back, right? For people of low income, it's extra money to help you out. For people who have sporadic income, it smooths out the income curve. Like if you're a gig worker, you know, you might give 1 week, but then don't get a job for 3 months, and it's helping you keep your lights on. And if you like helping people out, you know, there's a $500 billion charity market in this country that we give to this year, and we, you know, whatever the charity is, you do it knowing that
Where does that money go? Yeah,
40%
exactly.
is going to salaries, whatever, and then if it actually gets to someone, it's like, you know, like a care package of food that they're allergic to, or it's like it's sort of not as effective as it could be. So we want to speak to that market of people who, you know, that want to give, and say this is orders of magnitude more efficient. Like 97% of every dollar is getting straight to someone within a week, right?
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Yeah, that I didn't really think of that part of it. So immediately the thing that people will think is like, who is the fat cat that is signing up to do this, so it becomes some sort of viable thing that's actually helping people?
I think it's actually misguided to, like, people say all the time, like, you're going to need millionaires and billionaires or this won't work. And that's not true. It's all about numbers at scale. Like with the UBI calculator that I designed, like the most effective ways to fund the national UBI would be with sort of like a flat income tax. There's so much money in it. If you spread out that payment across like the top, it effectively is across the top 10, 15% of the population, rather than trying to get it out of the 0.1%. Like
So what do you mean by a flat tax? Because there's people have different ideas of what that means.
Like a flat income tax, like is that 7%, right? We're all throwing 7% of our income, right? So if we were to add an additional 10% to everyone's income tax in the US at the federal level, and say all of that money went into a UBI program, then, you know, the bottom 70% of people would end up ahead, and the top third of people would end up putting in more than they got out, right? So it's just like a redistributive mechanism. The thing that I like about that's a super hard sell politically. A lot of people are very against that, and it's understandable. Like, we don't know where the hell our tax dollars are going in this country, and it's very unsatisfying a lot of times. So the fact that commingle is a voluntary mechanism that will grow to the extent it can with people who want to try it out solves us that entire headache. You know, let's just see if it works first before we try to make the case.
I think though, if this idea replaced some of the other programs, even if it was more money, I think some people would like it better, because as you said, I think a lot of the problems with taxation is people do feel like they're throwing their money into like a void. No one really sees it or understands where it goes. But if it's like, oh, everyone gives, I don't know, 7% or whatever, of their income, and then you get a check back and you see like the direct amount of money that's paying for it. Even if you're getting less, you're like, okay, you understand exactly where the money is going.
Yeah. I mean, people use examples of like the Nordic countries or whatever all the time, and people are a lot happier with their taxes in general in places like that because they don't see people on the street all the time. Like and there's issues with their programs too, but they generally put a lot more of their money into taxes and they're a lot happier about it. And I think, you're never gonna have full buy-in on every single tax or whatever, but the more you can demonstrate how impactful it is on people's lives, whether they're getting extra money or they're living in a place with people who are happier and more productive,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Would the idea of UBI be to supplement already existing programs or to replace existing programs?
There's a lot of disagreement on this, and a lot of people like kind of clutch their pearls on the left. I think about like, no, this cannot replace anything, which I think is a big mistake. Actually, I think anything that can be best handled with a market with cash should be done with a market with cash. And the second you introduce conditionality or bureaucracy, like with current welfare or unemployment insurance, you introduce just this awful raft of disincentives.
Right.
Like, unemployment insurance is being paid not to work. And while it did help a lot of people during the pandemic, it also, I wrote a whole thing about this too, it also paid people more money to not work than to work. And it missed a lot of people that like were a certain form of contract or whatever, and it made all this unfairness. It ended up with a program that, like, the government, like in my state, came back 3 years later, and they're hounding us for trying to recollect some of that money that they gave out, saying, oh, this was actually an employee and not a contractor, which is, don't get me into that story. And UBI would get past all of this because the only condition is, are you a citizen, right?
Right.
We have the money at the federal level because it's fiat, the MMT thing. We could just give the money to everyone up front, tax it all back from the people who don't need it, and the net costs ends up being very reasonable, and we don't have a lot of waste. And we get rid of those structures where basically someone on welfare is punished for getting a job. And there's a lot of situations where not working is the smart thing. If you've had to bust your ass for weeks and weeks to get the money you're feeding your kids with, keeping your lights on with, and then you have the option to take a job where you'll now be putting 40 hours of your week into something, walking with an extra couple $100, so your marginal tax rate is enormous. And then if you lose that job, you've got nothing. It's stupid to get a job. We're punishing people for it. But if you have a UBI floor that doesn't go away and it gets gradually clawed back through taxes, there is no reason not to go work and make more for yourself and your family. There's no punishment.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree. I tend to think whenever you look at a system that's failing, that's a clear indication that the incentives are misaligned, and that's what's producing the failure. And I agree completely with unemployment insurance and with welfare. I mean, I've known people that have actually been in situations where they're like, well, if I get a job, I'm actually going to get less money, so it doesn't even make sense. And I do think that the UBI program replacing some of these other programs would definitely fix that issue completely. So I'm in favor of it from that perspective.
There are certain things I think should stay to some degree, but even those can be more universalized,
right?
To be more efficient. But like welfare and food stamps and stuff can be just totally replaced with cash, as long as people are getting as much or more that comes with cash and freedom, right? Food stamps, people end up selling them for half their value because they can't buy the things they want with it, right? And so it's totally wasteful. It creates black markets, and it's temporary, right? Cash, you can just do whatever you want, and it sort of helps fund the economy. There's all these problems with housing vouchers where most landlords don't accept housing vouchers, so they end up being worthless to a lot of people in a lot of situations. Healthcare, I think, still needs to be in some way in kind, because if you're just a regular person and your life is at risk, your health is not something that's an elastic demand. Like you can't just choose to, oh, that's too expensive, I'll just die. You have to pay whatever the hell. So you need some sort of stronger bargaining chip in that case. So it needs to be more than just giving people cash for healthcare. But yeah, unemployment insurance can be largely, I think, replaced by a sufficient sized UBI. Welfare and disability, I would say, is a tricky one. I think there's a portion of disability that's meant to cover like basic needs and basic essentials, and that could be replaced by UBI. But there's a portion of disability that is for additional needs and costs that, of living in a world that's not built for you, that's like not built with you in mind. And so that should still be disability. So people, and when you're applying for disability, you wait for years to get it. You're not allowed to work. If we changed it such that you had a UBI while you're applying and waiting, and then like a smaller amount of disability or that covers the other stuff, then and then added into it sort of an unconditionality where it's like the only thing you have to prove is that you have a disability. You don't have to then also never work again, because some people can work, part of the time. Like people with bipolar disorder can be very productive in work and want to a lot of the time, and they're forced to sit in their basement pretending they're totally incompetent.
So one of the other concerns that I hear from people beyond they'll just sit around doing nothing is this will cause too much inflation.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have what do you say to that?
Yeah, I think I mean a big part of that is the assumption that we're adding a lot of money to the economy, and it's the idea that we're just showering money on everyone and it's extra money in the economy, but understanding it more as a redistribution where there's the same amount of money for the same amount of resources, except we've effectively transferred a bulk of it that's just sitting and not being circulated, and moving it to where it's going to be spent in the economy.
Be still, adventurer, and allow me to share with you something important to our people, but far from obvious. We are a proud race, and the war with the humans tried even Thrall's great patience. You see, our war chief is wise and prudent, and he continues to put his people first. Ultimately, he is a diplomat, and in his time with the humans, he learned much of their ways. If the tale I've started piques your interest, then find Keldron near the western exit of the city. His hovel is there.
There's the argument that inflation is justifiable if goods and resources increase to meet it. So if you've got more money flowing but more things.
Blood and thunder. Ah, a note from Corin. He has been a loyal servant for some time now. I was wondering how his duties were going in the crossroads. So Corin has come to a similar conclusion about these insects. They seem to be a larger threat than we assumed. A few days ago, a hunter returned to me from Thousand Needles nearly dead. He was with a raiding party sent to drive a dwarven excavation team out of the Shimmering Flats. During the attack, more of these insects erupted from a cave in the dig site and nearly killed the party. They were led by Mokhtar Kryn, and they've taken refuge on the border of the Shimmering Flats. Bring him this note.
A warrior of the Horde, Regthar Deathgate, is recruiting agents for a mission into the land of Desolus. Speak with him if you wish to volunteer. He is stationed in the Barrens, in a series of bunkers west of the crossroads, and sharpen your weapons. Desolus is a place torn by war.
Nice going. I knew I was... Glad I could help!
You can buy with it or more services, then the inflation doesn't occur.
Right.
And yeah, there's a lot of intelligent tax policy that should be coupled with it, but also regulation. Like a lot of people assume when you talk about UBI that it's this sort of utopian thing where it's going to be the only policy we ever do, and they'll be like, well, landlords will just suck up all the money and charge more. And it's like,
right.
Just like we need sort of speculation control and anti-monopoly and like certain sorts of regulations to make sure that power isn't too consolidated and people with too much capital don't have leverage against people that don't. You need some sort of a regulation to make sure that the market stays effectively free, that everyone, a free market, like everyone can have sufficient say that it finds the appropriate equilibrium.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. In theory, obviously, it gets a little more complicated if there's all these downstream effects caused by UBI, which would require regulating, rent or something to that effect to kind of try to figure out what all those numbers would be. I mean, I would like to. I don't know if this has happened, but I'd like to see like like a large city or an entire state just do a UBI for like a year just to see what happens.
Yeah, it would be cool. Yeah, anyone who says that they know what'll happen under a full UBI, either short term, medium term, long term, is lying to you or lying to themselves. Because it's what it really is representing, and we shouldn't pretend otherwise, is a fundamental shift in how we view the role of the social safety net, our role in society, the future of work and the labor market. And people have all these theories that they say confidently, like, you know, productivity will explode or everyone will withdraw. And it's like, one, there's devil in the details, like how big is it, how frequent is it, whatever. And two, there's, you know, there's just an unpredictability in how the population in aggregate responds to something. It's like the stock market. Anyone who says they can predict the stock market is lying to you or lying to themselves. So I think the smart approach is to actually try it out at scale, like you said, whether it's in a state and it's maybe a full UBI. I mean, we've kind of been testing it in Alaska to a degree for a long time. Or I'd like to see, you know, a partial, like a smaller amount of money tested truly universally across the country. And I think a really good way to do that has had a lot of nonpartisan support is carbon tax. Part of the problem with carbon tax in general, like when they did it in France, is when you just put fines on extracting carbon from the ground, the producers and the manufacturers and all that will just pass the cost on the consumer, and that ends up hurting people with lower incomes. And so, like in France, you got all the yellow vests in the street, right? Because they're like, screw you, you're not saving the climate on my back. We're the ones who are struggling, right? Whereas if you pair a carbon tax with a UBI by taking the revenue from that carbon tax and giving it right back out to everybody,
Would you rather trust
an
your
equal
good
share, even doesn't even have to be proportionally targeted. What you end up with is a situation where the people at the bottom of the spectrum generally use a lot less carbon than they're not taking flights, they don't have big houses to heat, whatever. They get more money in the form of a check than they lose at the pump, right? And so it becomes this incentive structure that allows and helps people to start making the shift towards more renewable energies and things like that, while also helping them, pay their other bills. And it's a sort of self-obsoleting funding mechanism. But what it would do is, you can check this out on the UBI calculator too. What it would do if we just had a carbon tax would be, a couple $100 a month a person, or maybe $100 a month a person, which is enough to make a big difference in a lot of people's lives. And it starts internalizing the externalities of carbon extraction, of fossil fuel extraction, in a way that, like, now somewhere along the line, someone's paying for the pollution and the degradation. So if we had that in place, that sort of implies we'd have to have an infrastructure in place to distribute money quickly, which is something we should already do, I think. Just like a federal bank where everyone has a bank account that's not attached to some commercial bank. It's like you can just put money in it. I mean, that's something we should just do regardless, is make sure everyone's got a bank account, for that unhoused population and stuff like that, to just as a resource.
I don't want to cut you off, Sitch. I have more questions about the app. So
I was going to ask, Thal has a question. He says, has Conrad looked at the disabled veteran community and how they respond to being 100% disabled? Pay is $3,700 a month and free healthcare for life. I would think it would be a very good pool to look at.
I don't know as much specifically about the disabled veteran community, but that sounds like a better deal than a lot of people who are disabled get. Yeah, I'd be interested to look into that too. My partner in a lot of this, or one of my partners, people who follow UBI might have heard of Scott Santon's, like, I'm coming out of nowhere from the mad scientist area, but he's been sort of a public influencer, and he's done a ton of writing and research on all the different angles of this. So I'll probably talk to him a little bit about that too. But I would say if you want to look at it from a zillion different angles beyond the ones I have and my writing and the work look at Scott Santon's.
We've had Scott on the show before. Yeah.
Yeah, he's great. Yeah.
What were we gonna ask Adam?
Well, I was going to ask, obviously, the concerns people are going to have about the app is privacy concerns. So I just wanted to bring that up. And then I have another question about like big donations and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, privacy and security, right? And that's something I think we got to prove. There's going to be some number of people that are willing to trust us off the bat, right? But most of the people, a lot of the people in the country don't connect their bank accounts to anything, so they're not in our pool to begin with. And some people need to be shown that it's trustworthy and secure. What we're building, our intention is to build it completely anonymous to the extent that people want to be. And we want to give people opportunity to share their stories and things that we never will. Because we're building in our revenue stream as a strict utility, as a percentage. So the way Commingled revenue will work is 1% of the money that comes into the pot becomes commingled revenue. And at like 30,000 members or so, it starts to overtake our overhead expenses, and we can start putting that back towards cool new tools and things like that for the members. But because it's built in from day one, it's not like the typical internet model of like get a zillion people addicted and then boom, monetize, right? Ads, personal data selling. We're actually making it a core promise is that we never show ads. We never have data selling. We have no profit incentive that we're allowing ourselves to have engagement or addiction metrics. Like the way I see it is we want to build out as much tools and functionality and ways to engage for people who want to. But someone should either be able to be on it all day if they want, or just set it and forget it for 5 years, and it's all the same to us, right? And I think that sort of addresses one of the main problems with the internet industry today is this urge to monetize just breaks everything.
Is the app in use now? Has it been built?
No, it's about half built. That's kind of why we're doing the fundraiser, is both to like start building awareness, but build some more of our development funds. So we've raised a couple $100,000 on grants to get where we are. The current one is about to hit its target, the crowdfund of $75,000. That'll get us to the next phase of beta. But yeah, speaking of security, like right now we have 20 beta testers that their bank accounts are connected. The algorithm's not all the way smartened up, but it's learning. And they're transacting what we call it play money beta, where we're just calculating what the transactions would be and giving a report like, you put in this much, you got back that much, this is where you end up this week, here's how the community did, here's how many people were net beneficiaries, here's how many people gave. And just working out the user experience. The next phase of beta is to have real money beta, where we start small again, just like a few people and then 20 people and whatever, to transact the actual money and the timing and the security logistics that entails, and work through that. And then there's a couple more phases after that where we grow, maybe do a local pilot in a town, make sure that we fully understand the infrastructure we'll need to have this be scalable, if we're going to launch it and make it open to everyone in the U.S. public, right? We don't want an Obamacare where everyone's like, cool, I'm signing up, and then it just crashes and burns for the first 2 months. We want to know that we're going to be able to, if we end up getting a lot of coverage and people want in really quickly, then we want to be able to take them in really quickly.
Right.
So if you got big dollar donations, is there going to be a way for philanthropists to just donate to the app directly?
Yeah, a lot of people, we expect that we're going to have to earn a lot of people's trust. And while the heartbeat of the model is the membership, and the model should work, as long as we have a diverse range of incomes, but it can be 0 to 80,000 and it would still work. The important thing is that the average income stays at a certain threshold or more, and we're going to use a wait list to make sure it's not flooded with zero income people. So it'll have to grow more resiliently. And then people who want to donate will have both just give options for people who want to contribute to it but don't want to attach their bank accounts. And also for large philanthropic stuff, we'll route through a 501c3 we've created recently called the Income to Support All Foundation, or It's a Foundation. So it's a foundation.org. And the idea is like they can get a tax deductibility. They can put kind of my vision for it is something I was playing around with one of my bigger funders, our bigger funders for the docuseries is, you know, I look at these giving pledge billionaires that have $100 billion that they want to give away. And none of them have done it yet, right? They've all made the pledge, but not a single one has kept up with their wealth accumulation. None of them have figured out how to give away, you know, $50 billion.
Right.
It's hard. You have to basically create like a medium-sized country's government in order to do it in the typical philanthropic bureaucratic way.
Right.
The only way to really do it is a really efficient UBI, right? And so I was going to put together a proposal for how we could like do a whole UBI in some country somewhere and allow, you know, Zuckerberg to give $100 billion to it and endow it forever and end poverty in that country, right? It's a nice little legacy thing.
Do it in our country.
Yeah, no, Elon might
He doesn't
jump
have
at
enough
that.
money to do it in our country. Like it takes a lot more in our country to do it than like in, you know, Nicaragua or something.
Sure.
But the idea behind Commingle is, you know, we have this tool that we're creating to channel money hyper effectively. And so once it's built, we could go to Zuckerberg or Buffett or whatever and say, however much money, $100 billion, put it in. And, you know, the payouts are capped at, you know, $300 a week per person. So it stays within the gift limit, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if we got this giant pool of money sitting there as an asset that's like, come and claim it, right? Then we grow our...
Did you say 300 a week or 300 a month?
300 a week.
300 a week.
We do it weekly. So part of the reason for that is to make sure it never exceeds the gift limit. In the U.S., you can give 17 grand to someone a year just as a gift, and no one has to report it on taxes.
Oh,
So
okay.
the way we're
Interesting.
positioning ourselves is that it's not like you give money to Commingle and then Commingle gives money to people. Commingle is just a tool by which a bunch of people agree to give each other money. So as long as we keep it below that gift limit, no one should ever have to report any of it. It's just like Venmoing your buddy for lunch or whatever. It's like we're all just gifting each other all the time. It's not the government's business.
Wow. Okay, that's interesting. That is interesting. So yeah, that answered my next question about big dollar donations. Like if someone gives, you know, $1 billion, is it like the lottery? All of a sudden that week, everybody gets
We don't want that to happen.
$100,000
We also,
payout.
we're talking about, we're going to have to figure out a set of safeguards. Like the model itself needs to be strong enough to sustain itself, whether or not some billionaire comes and goes, right? You don't want the payout to be like $50, $500, $10, because then everyone's just going to run for the doors, you know? You don't want volatility, you want resiliency. So we'll probably make it such that, you know, if there's a giant pool of money that comes in philanthropically, the amount it adds to the payout each week can't be more than like 20% or something. And so it'll bump the payout from 50 to $60. But if it ends and that donor goes away, the whole model doesn't collapse. At the same time, we're looking at ways to do smaller, like more targeted version. I think I'm calling them bubbles, right? Where like these are like whether people are throwing money towards all the actors in the actors strike, or there's like a natural disaster or some cause or something where you want to get a lot of money to people quickly. We can spin up a commingle in parallel by a set of zip codes or some other way to identify people and say, we're going to layer however much money comes in on top so that they can be getting, you know, that money really quickly. Instead of $50 a week, it's $300 a week while they're, you know, rebuilding their homes or evacuating or whatever. And if that philanthropic money all dries up and goes away and that ends, it's because that cause is over and it doesn't drag down the rest of like just the national version that runs on the members sharing their income.
Well, this is very, very fascinating stuff. I hope that you get this up and running, just because it would be interesting to get the data on it to see how it goes, to kind of figure out, you know, if it's going to work or not. I guess it's technically not a UBI because I think one of the properties of UBI that people worry about is it's universal. Everybody gets it. So they worry that it's going to have a giant effect on the economy. And obviously, even if you got 100,000 signups on the app, I don't know that it would have the same kind of effects on the economy that UBI would have.
Yeah, it really depends on like the saturation levels in an area. So if some town gets super ambitious and says we want to run our own UBI pilot with our own little commingle bubble, and everyone's going to join, or like half the city is going to join, and we want to throw in 20% of our income, like just do something really ballsy. We want to let them try that, and that would be more like a UBI in the context of that region, where you'd see money flowing in to the extent that Main Street should feel the difference, and you can measure like economic impact. I would say, I would argue that universality in terms of commingle is an appropriate term to an extent that universality always implies some sort of border. There's some, very, very purist people that are like, it's not UBI until every single breathing person on the planet is getting it, and anything short of that is unacceptable, and they will fight it. But it's like, man, we can't just start there. We have to build.
No, I completely agree. Like you gotta kind of phase into this. The problem with a city doing it or a state doing it, you really, like, states can go bankrupt, cities can go bankrupt. They don't have the advantages that the currency issuer has at the federal level. I think this is one of the reasons why, you always get the states that are going to try some universal healthcare program, and they always end up going bust because they don't have they don't have the tools at their disposal that the federal government has. And as soon as the state opens up some sort of universal health care, it's a magnet for everybody in the country that needs health care. So like even if you could convince California, which I mean, you probably could, like you probably could convince them to do something like this. California is a rich state. There's a lot of high income people, but it would attract like every poor person around the United States until the program became insolvent.
Yeah, I mean, so one of the things that makes commingle special is that it is not reliant on philanthropic dollars or government dollars or whatever to exist. It has its own taxation mechanism and its own funding mechanism, right, within it. So like one of the special bubble case studies we're hoping to be able to offer is like for all these towns or counties that are running guaranteed or universal basic income pilots that are basically like, okay, we got $5 million. How many people can we give for how long? It's an entirely different strategy where it's like, how many people can we get to join commingle, and how much money will be flowing just based on their participation, and then say, okay, let's experiment with how we optimize that. Like we have
Nice
this
going.
pot of funds.
I knew I was right about.
Let's see what happens when we bump everyone $10 a week. We change the calculus, how many people come out ahead or behind, and we just try that out and see how big the community grows, right? But if at any point the government funding or the philanthropic funding goes away, it has its own ability to exist at its natural equilibrium because it has its own source of funding.
Well, it has its own source of funding as long as there's people who are net payers. As soon as the net payers vanish, then the source of funding vanishes as well. So, and I'm thinking in terms of, let's say you tried it in a city. I mean, the next logical step, I'm just thinking in terms of incremental steps to get to actually like a nationwide UBI, which I'm a believer. Look, I don't know when it's going to happen. I do think automation is going to eventually make labor, virtually obsolete. I think we're going to automate away all the jobs that nobody wants to do.
We don't
jobs
want to wait till that happens before we do.
Oh, of course. Look, we're going to automate away jobs that people want to do, like artists, for one, is getting automated away pretty quick here. So look, I see that in the future. A lot of people disagree. I know it seems crazy and 100 years away to a lot of people. So I respect that, and I usually try to pitch the question like, if we get to a point where we automate away maybe 50% of the jobs in America, we're down to 50% remaining, obviously we're going to have to do something about that. Would you be interested in doing UBI at that particular point in time? And a lot of people say, of course, look, we got to do something about it. So then we're just haggling over, well, when is that period of time going to be? Is it 100 years away? Is it 500 years away? Is it 10 years away? Where is it? So look, we got to keep tabs on what's going on in the environment. But I'm just thinking
your goods with a
as like a policy, like if a city decided to link it to something like, I don't know, property taxes or something like that, I mean, you'd have to get some sort of net pay-in.
Right.
And I don't like, sooner or later, it can't be just whoever wants to pay in pays in, because you get the tragedy of the economy.
Besides the grunts outs.
Yeah, I think the way I see it is if we wait until it's bad enough with automation or for whatever makes it finally like tipping point, then we're in a moment of crisis and haggling over an untested idea, and whatever comes out of it could be a bad policy. The way I can, in my strategic brain, see it playing out is part of why we're testing the model too, is to kind of sort of get a sense of the mechanism. But like I said before, some sort of funding mechanism for a small UBI. So if we have the carbon tax and dividend, it's some money kind of going to everyone that they see as like their dividend to the commons, whatever. And then we can start looking as we go, both at the data of what the impacts are, what's happening,
spending,
and then
employment,
more
all that stuff.
money to put into it. So if we had that in place, we'd have the mechanism to get money really quickly. If we wanted to do stimulus checks to everyone, it wouldn't be like early pandemic where it took months and months. It'd be like, boom, next day we do it and see how that works, right? And then when we're in that situation, all of a sudden, we're not deciding so much like, should we start talking about this policy? We're looking at what other sources of funding might it make sense to redirect into this program to test that out too. So like, sharing the profitability and prosperity from data, right? People talk a lot about data as the new, or Yang would talk about it as the oil of the 21st century, right? If there's money there and we have a place to put it, then we can just do it, right? I'm concerned with setting up the infrastructure, and starting small is totally fine. We don't have to get to total guaranteed livability
Bhutani,
or even the
noble
poverty line to
adventurer.
start. We
I
just
am
need to start.
Keldrin, student of magic and other mystical arts. The business Craven sent you here to speak to me about requires a touch more subtlety than you've previously needed, but that does not mean you cannot still aid our cause. Please, make yourself comfortable, and I shall tell you why the war chief has need of my aid, and yours. It starts with appearances, adventurer. How the Horde sees itself. How our allies see us. And most importantly, how our enemies see us. As the Alliance progresses deeper and deeper into Kalimdor, incorrect conclusions may be drawn about the Horde making pacts with the Burning Legion. The War Chief cannot allow that to happen. And with his blessing, I'm taking control of overseeing them removed. I have agents in the area of Desolus at the Ghost Walker Post, north of the Great Kodo Graveyard. Head south of the Charred Vale in the Stone Talon Mountains, and you shall come across it. When you arrive, seek out Takata Steelblade.